Welcome, dear friend. As we explore our Catholic faith, the lives of the saints offer such rich inspiration, don't they?
They certainly do. And today we're looking at a really remarkable figure.
St. Margaret of Castello. Her life was just filled with challenges, immense challenges, but it became this incredible testament to faith, to charity.
Absolutely. And, her canonization was quite recent, 2021, but it really just formalized what the faithful have recognized for centuries. Her holiness is undeniable.
Yeah, it's a powerful story. Born late 13th century, faced significant physical disabilities right from birth, and then, well, the profound pain of being rejected by her own parents.
Yet somehow, through her faith, she didn't just survive that. She thrived, became a real beacon for the marginalized.
So that's our mission for this deep dive, right?
Yeah.
To explore her life, understand her spirituality, maybe grasp the historical world she lived in.
And her legacy, what she means for us today, especially thinking about the dignity of every single human life.
Definitely. And to do this, we're drawing on historical accounts, the story of her life, and also the Church's records surrounding her path to sainthood.
A rich history there.
Okay, so let's start at the very beginning. She was born in 1287. Not Florence, which you might guess.
Right, common assumption for Italy back then.
But Matola Castle, near Mercatello sul Motoro, in what were the Papal States then?
And her parents, Parisio and Amelia, they were nobility.
Nobles. So
Yeah.
what did that mean back then in 14th century Italy? What were their expectations?
Well, nobility meant status, influence, lineage was everything, family honor. So the birth of a child, especially maybe a firstborn, was a huge deal.
Yeah.
Hopes for the future, carrying on the name.
And then Margaret was born. And that joy, that hope, it must have shifted dramatically because of her physical condition.
Yes. It was clear from the start she faced significant challenges.
Can you detail those for us?
Well, she was blind, she had severe scoliosis, a curvature of the spine, which gave her a pronounced hunchback and made walking very difficult. Her growth was also restricted, so she had dwarfism. One leg was shorter than the other, causing a limp. And reports mentioned distinctive facial features, too. It was quite a combination of disabilities.
That must have been incredibly difficult for her parents.
Yeah.
And to really understand their reaction, we need to think about the society then, 14th century Italy. How were disabilities viewed, especially among nobles?
Yeah, that context is crucial. Physical perfection was, well, highly valued,
Huh.
especially for nobles where appearance, bearing, it was all tied up with status, power, arranging marriages.
Right.
Disabilities often carried a real stigma, seen as bad luck, maybe even a divine disapproval. It could bring shame on the family, affect their standing.
So seeing it through that lens,
Mm-hmm.
their decision to essentially hide her, it's still heartbreaking, but maybe you can kind of grasp the thinking behind it.
It seems that way. Around age 6, they walled her up in a room, attached to the family chapel,
Walled her up. For how long?
for about 10 years, until she was 16.
10 years. What was that like for her, this isolation?
Well, it sounds incredibly harsh, obviously, but there's a paradox here. Because the room was attached to the chapel, she could actually hear Mass, receive the sacraments through a window.
Ah, okay.
And her parents arranged for the family chaplain to give her religious instruction. So even in confinement, her faith was being nurtured, seeds were being planted.
Isolation, but also this direct line to her faith. That's fascinating. So then, when she's 16, her parents take her somewhere.
Yes, to a Franciscan shrine in a town called Castello. It was known for supposed miracles, healings.
So they were hoping for a cure, still holding out hope.
It seems likely. Maybe a mix of genuine hope, maybe societal pressure, maybe their own conflicted feelings. A miracle would solve, well, everything in their eyes.
But the miracle didn't happen.
No.
And their reaction then was just devastating.
It really was. When no cure occurred, they didn't take her back home. They left her there.
In Castello, they abandoned her.
Yeah.
Their 16-year-old blind disabled daughter just left her.
Yes. In a city where she knew no one. They returned to Mitola without her. Cut ties completely. It's hard to fathom.
It truly is. And yet, and this just blows me away, the accounts say Margaret held no resentment, no bitterness towards her parents. How do we even understand that, especially from our Catholic perspective?
Yeah.
Did that early religious teaching play a part?
It has to have. It's an incredible testament to grace. That focus on love, forgiveness, accepting God's will. It must have formed a very strong foundation. Perhaps she already saw suffering through redemptive lens, which is so central to our faith.
Forgiving that kind of betrayal,
Yeah,
it shows amazing spiritual maturity, even then.
it really does.
So there she is, alone in Castello. What happens next? How does she survive?
Well, initially it must have been incredibly precarious, begging, relying on strangers' charity. But the townspeople of Castello, they saw her. They saw her faith, perhaps, and they showed compassion.
Not the nobles, but the ordinary people.
Yes, the poor of the city took her in, gave her the love and care her own family wouldn't. Later, she did spend a short time with some nuns in a local convent,
Oh, hoping to join them.
possibly seeking a more formal religious life. But that didn't last long either.
Why not? Another rejection.
In a way, apparently her deep devotion, her fervent prayer life, her strict observance, it clashed with the nuns there, who were perhaps a bit more, shall we say, lax in their practices.
So the contrast was too great.
It seems so. They asked her to leave.
Wow. First her family, then the convent. But this actually led her somewhere important, didn't it?
It did, a seeming setback, but it guided her toward her true spiritual path. Around that time, 1303, the Dominican friars had just set up in Castello.
Ah, the Dominicans.
Yes. Margaret came into contact with them, maybe drawn by their focus on preaching, on service. She sought their guidance, and eventually they admitted her into the Third Order of St. Dominic.
The Third Order. Can you explain what that meant for a layperson like Margaret?
Sure. The Third Order, or Dominican tertiaries, it's a way for lay people to live according to Dominican spiritual principles while staying in the world. It means a commitment to prayer, often parts of the divine office, regular sacraments, and importantly, works of charity, serving the community.
So it gave her a structure, a spiritual family.
Exactly. A way to live out her deep devotion.
And she really embraced this life in Castello, didn't she?
Oh, wholeheartedly. Daily Mass was central, and she dedicated herself to serving others. Remarkably, she started a small school.
A school?
Yeah.
Despite being blind.
Yes, she taught local children the catechism, the Psalms. And she cared for them, helped their families in practical ways, too.
That's amazing. And all accounts mention her spirit, right? Despite everything.
Yes, known for being cheerful, serene, courageous in the face of constant pain and difficulty.
It's such a stark contrast. Rejected by her wealthy family, embraced by the poor, finds her place with the Dominicans, serves the community. It really speaks volumes about Christian values, doesn't it? About true worth.
It's a beautiful illustration. Dignity isn't about status or physical ability. It's inherent from God.
Hmm.
The people of Castello saw that in her.
And her life there wasn't just about quiet service. There were extraordinary events too, right? Signs of divine favor.
Yes, the miracles, even during her lifetime.
Tell us about those.
Well, there are accounts of her actually levitating during prayer, a sign of intense mystical union with God.
Levitation. Wow.
And stories of her intercession being incredibly powerful, like raising a boy who had drowned and another child who fell from a balcony, both reportedly restored to life through her prayers.
So her reputation for holiness must have been growing rapidly in Castello.
Absolutely. People recognized something special, something holy about her.
And the extraordinary didn't stop when she died, did it? She passed away relatively young.
Yes, on April 12, 1320, she was only 33. But even her death was marked by the miraculous.
What happened?
At her funeral, the townspeople strongly felt she should be buried inside the church, which was an honor not usually granted easily.
There was resistance.
Some, yes. But then, a crippled girl was brought to her coffin. She touched it and was instantly healed.
A miracle at her own funeral.
Exactly. That overcame any objection. It solidified the belief in her sanctity right then and there.
And then there was the discovery during the autopsy, something quite unique.
Very unique. When they examined her body post-mortem, they found 3 small pearls embedded in her heart muscle.
Pearls.
Yeah.
Inside her heart.
Yes. And apparently, each pearl bore a tiny image related to the Holy Family Jesus, Mary, and Joseph.
That's incredible. How is that interpreted?
As a profound physical sign of her intense love for and union with the Holy Family. A divine seal on her devotion.
And one more thing after her death. Her body.
Yes, her body was found to be incorrupt. It remained remarkably preserved for centuries, resisting natural decay, which in the church is often considered another sign of holiness.
So miracles during life, miracles at death, this discovery in her heart, the incorruptibility, it's a powerful case for sainthood.
Absolutely. All these factors paved the way for official recognition.
How did that process unfold? It took quite some time.
It did. But the local veneration was immediate and continuous. The first major step was her beatification. Pope Paul V declared her blessed on October 19, 1609.
Beatification, so that allowed public veneration.
Yes, formal recognition of her holiness. But the final step, canonization, came much later. As we mentioned, Pope Francis declared her a saint on April 24th, 2021.
And he uses a specific process, right? Equipollent canonization.
That's right, equipollent. It sounds technical, but it basically means the Pope can declare someone a saint based on certain established facts without needing the usual full, formal judicial process or a recently proven miracle.
What are those facts?
Essentially, a long-standing, widespread cult of devotion, solid proof of a life of heroic virtue, and a history of miracles attributed to their intercession.
So from Margaret, the centuries of veneration, her well-documented virtuous life, all those miracles, it all added up.
Exactly. Pope Francis recognized that her sainthood was, in effect, already established and lived by the Church for centuries. It was time for the universal Church to formally acknowledge it.
A beautiful recognition.
Yeah.
And now, as St. Margaret, she's a patron for so many people.
Yes, her patronage is extensive, and it flows directly from her life experiences.
Who does she intercede for specifically?
Well, for people with disabilities, obviously.
Yep.
For the blind. For unwanted children, which reflects her own abandonment. For the pro-life movement. Also those with eye diseases, muscular diseases, the poor, the handicapped.
People rejected by religious orders, like she was initially.
Yes. Anyone facing physical challenges, poverty. It's a really broad scope, born from her own suffering and compassion.
It gives such deep meaning to her role as patrons. It's not abstract. It's rooted in her reality. Her life just hammers home that inherent dignity of every single person.
It really does, no matter the physical condition, no matter the social status. And her inspiration is felt today. There are shrines dedicated to her, even here in the U.S.
And you mentioned the pro-life movement and those working with people with disabilities. She holds a special significance there.
Yes, she's seen as a powerful witness to the sanctity and value of every life, from conception onwards, and a testament to the potential and worth found in every individual, regardless of ability.
Her legacy feels so strong. It's about that spiritual fortitude, isn't it? Proving that real strength is about faith, hope, and that selfless love.
It really is. And to fully appreciate just how remarkable that strength was, it helps to quickly picture her world again, 14th, 15th century Italy.
Right, the context. Very hierarchical.
Extremely.
Yeah.
Nobility at the top, huge power. And marginalized groups like people with disabilities. Their status was precarious, to say the least.
Not exactly an era known for widespread social support system.
No. I mean, individual charity existed, of course, but
Yeah.
the general attitude towards disability could easily be indifference, neglect, even fear or exclusion. It makes the welcome she found in Castello even more significant.
And the church's role was massive then, too.
Central. Absolutely central. And this was also the era where mendicant orders, like the Dominicans she joined, were really influential. They focused on poverty, preaching, serving the urban populations.
And lay people were getting more involved in spiritual life, too.
Yes, there was a real flourishing of popular piety. Movements like the Dominican Third Order were part of that, giving ordinary people a way to live a dedicated spiritual life, connected to an order, but within the world.
So Margaret fits right into that picture, finding her way through these social and religious currents.
Exactly. Her life shows that resilience, that charity, flourishing, despite potential isolation, despite limited support structures for someone like her.
Truly inspiring. Now, how about art? How is St. Margaret typically shown? What does her iconography tell us?
Well, you'll almost always see her in the habit of the Dominican Third Order, the black and white robes. That immediately places her.
Okay, identifies her spiritual family. Are there specific symbols associated with her?
Yes, several key ones. Often a lily, the traditional symbol of purity.
Makes sense.
And very distinctively, a heart. Sometimes it's shown with 3 lobes or maybe 3 small pearls or stones inside it.
Ah, referencing the miracle after her death, the pearls found in her heart.
Precisely. Symbolizing her deep love for the Holy Family. And you'll often see her depicted with a cane.
Acknowledging her disability.
Yes, acknowledging her physical challenges, but it also comes to symbolize her steadfastness and faith, maybe even her role as a spiritual guide for others.
So the symbol of her difficulty becomes a symbol of her strength. I like that.
It's powerful, isn't it? And interestingly, most depictions tend to emphasize her piety, her serene expression, her inner beauty, rather than dwelling heavily on the physical deformities.
Focusing on the spiritual over the physical.
Exactly. It reflects that theological point about inherent dignity and spiritual worth being what truly matters. There's even an early painting, late 14th century, by Andrea di Bartolo, showing her with other Dominican blessed figures. So her importance was recognized quite early on within the order.
It all paints such a moving picture. A woman facing unbelievable adversity right from birth, yet becoming this shining example of faith, hope, and just, selfless love. Her story still feels so relevant.
It really does. St. Margaret of Castello reminds us that true strength isn't about physical perfection or worldly status. It's found in faith in God and in loving others selflessly. Her journey, with all its suffering and grace, it's a beacon for us.
A true model of holiness. And her patronage continues to touch so many lives today.
Absolutely.
So as we finish this deep dive on St. Margaret, maybe here's something for us all to ponder. How does her unwavering faith, especially facing that rejection, those physical limits, how does it challenge our own ideas about human dignity, about what strength really looks like? And perhaps, how can her story push us, especially within our Catholic faith, towards a deeper commitment to compassion, towards a truly radical inclusion in our communities, to really see and cherish the image of God in every single person, no matter what?
A powerful question to carry with us.